Welcome everyone to German Tool Reviews. Today we have a showdown of offset screwdrivers from 4 major German tool brands. The inspiration for this video came when I was restoring a German-made Ideal industrial shredder and needed an offset screwdriver to make an adjustment on a concealed Phillips screw after I had already had everything back together. I knew I had one somewhere, but I couldn't find it and ended up using a 1/4 inch bit and a pair of pliers to get to that screw. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to pick up and compare several German offset screwdrivers. Offset screwdrivers, also known as cranked or right angle screwdrivers, are used for accessing screws with very little headroom clearance due to interference with other objects. It is often the case that the only reason you are using one of these is because the engineer who designed the machine you are working on didn't pick the right fasteners or leave enough clearance to get the proper tool in there. I tried to pick up a combination Phillips number 1 and number 2 from each of the brands we are comparing. Unfortunately, it does not look like Felo currently offers this combination in the North American market, so I had to settle for a number 2 and slotted combination. I did see that they have many more selections available in the German version of their catalog. Now we'll take a quick look at each of the candidates before diving into the showdown. First up is the Felo 57557 made in Germany. Out of the 4, this is the only one that comes in a reusable pouch, which I could see useful if you wanted to hang this on a tool board. The unit has good length and I like the ribs provided near the end of each side. The overall length is around 133.5 millimeters or 5.25 inches with a shank diameter of 6 millimeters or about 1/4 of an inch. The unit weighs 35 grams or about 1.25 ounces, which is the second heaviest candidate. Next we have the Gedore 174-1 made in the Czech Republic. KC Tool indicates that this is made in the Czech Republic even though it is stamped Germany. This is not all that uncommon for products from countries with less stringent COO laws. This is a much shorter unit with a matte nickel finish. The overall length is around 103 millimeters or 4 1/16 inches with a shank diameter of 6 millimeters. The unit weighs 27 grams or about an ounce, which is the lightest of the candidates. Next we have the Wera 017205 made in Germany. It is interesting that this is made in Germany since the vast majority of Wera's products come from their factory in the Czech Republic. So I'm not sure if this is a rebranded product from another German manufacturer. The overall length is around 128 millimeters or 5 inches with a shank diameter of 6 millimeters. The unit weighs 37 grams or about 1.3 ounces, which is the heaviest of the 4. Finally, we have the Wiha 16112. The design of the Wiha is very similar to that of the Wera, but there are some differences, so I don't think that they are made in the same factory. The overall length is around 125 millimeters or 4 15/16 inches with a shank diameter of 5.5 millimeters. The unit weighs 30 grams or about 1.05 ounces, which is the second lightest candidate. To evaluate the screwdrivers, I created a set of parameters that I felt important to the design of the driver and assigned a weight to each such that the total came out to 100%. The following are the categories that I used to rate each of the drivers. Bit fit with 40% of the total, whereby the criteria is how well does the bit actually seat inside the fastener. Arm length with 25% of the total. Since this is an offset screwdriver, the shorter you can make the ends of the driver, the less clearance you will need to reach the fastener. Cost at 15%, and of course the lower the cost the better. Joint design at 10%. Where we look at how the joints were designed and does it look like they will hold up over time. Ergonomics at 5%, how comfortable is the screwdriver to use, and finally surface finish and build quality at 5%. Of course, several of these categories are totally subjective and, in my opinion, may not match the priorities that other users have. In each of the categories, each brand will be assigned a number 1 through 4, with 1 being the best and 4 being the worst. At the end, the weighted scores will be totaled and the brand with the lowest score will be the winner. Now it's time for the showdown. We will start with the category with the least weighted score and progress up to the most weighted. First up is surface finish and build quality. It is surprising how different the surface finish of the 4 ended up being. This goes to show you that there is a disagreement even with the individual manufacturers about which process is superior. The Gedore and Wera units claim to be nickel plated, while the Wiha claims to have a hard chrome finish. The Felo does not indicate the type of plating being used. This really isn't the video to get into the differences between chrome and nickel plating, but they are both generally very expensive and time-consuming processes that require a great deal of quality control. I did see a small blemish in the Gedore unit that I believe is a defect known as spotting. This happens when a portion of the metal cools at a different rate than the rest of the metal. Not really a big deal as this is just a purely cosmetic defect. The metal finish of the rest of the unit looks good and I did not see any other issues. In terms of build quality, these are very well made. If I really had to nitpick at anything, it would be the rough trimming job of the plastic molded handle on the Wera unit. I did not see any manufacturing defects on the Felo or Wiha units, so they were close, but I ended up preferring the Wiha over the Felo because I personally prefer a matte finish over the bright chrome one, followed by the Wera and Gedore, both of which had very minor defects. Now on the ergonomics, which is another category that is totally subjective. While the Wiha and Wera units have similar handle designs, I prefer the Wera because of the extra ridge that they provide at the end of the molded plastic handle. I find that the Gedore unit is a little too small to fit in your hand without stabbing yourself with the other end. The one I personally like the best is actually the Felo because of the ribs that they provide, which will help when using these in oily conditions. I also like the extra length that this particular unit provides. So this category goes to Felo, followed by Wera, Wiha, and then Gedore. Next, we look at the design of the right angle joints to see how they were constructed. 3 of the units appeared to have a design whereby they formed the right angle that produces a small notch in the metal. This notch could have been formed by a roller pushing the metal into shape or was applied before the shaping process. In terms of these 3 units, I'm going to score them based on how deep of an indentation that was made during the manufacturing process, with the less intrusion the better. A clear winner here in my opinion is actually the Wera, which managed to produce the right angle without so much as a blemish. What they might have done is started off with a larger diameter shaft and then used a grinder to remove any imperfections, but this would be my guess. I would definitely say that this would be the strongest joint of the 4. So to score this category, first place goes to Wera, second place goes to Wiha, third place goes to Gedore, and fourth place goes to Felo. Finally, we are on to a category that isn't totally subjective. The cost rating is based on the MSRP of each unit. So coming in first place is the Felo at $4.31. Coming in second place is the Wiha at $5.98. Coming in third place is the Wera at $6.72. And fourth place goes to the Gedore at $14.14. They are all relatively the same except for the Gedore, which is a clear outlier. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. One of the most important aspects of an offset screwdriver is the minimum height that it needs to engage the fastener. This would correspond to the length of the arm with the driver bit on it. The shorter you can get this while still being functional, the better. In first place comes the Wiha at 20.0 millimeters. Second place goes to the Gedore at 23.8 millimeters. Third place goes to the Felo at 25.4 millimeters. And fourth place goes to the Wera at 28.5 millimeters. Now we can finally test these drivers on some fasteners. I decided just to test with the Phillips number 2 end because the Felo did not have a Phillips number 1. Throwing together a test fixture, you can see why arm length is important, as the Wera and Felo drivers did not have the required clearance to reach this fastener. I built this little contraption with the intention of being a test fixture for these drivers, but it didn't quite work out that way. Now taking a look at how well the driver fits into a typical fastener. The criteria for this test is how much of the fastener fills up the Phillips cavity in the screw, as well as how well does the driver appear to grip the fastener. First up we have the Felo. This one definitely performed the worst out of the lot in terms of the fit of the bits. As you can see, it does not even appear to seat all the way into the fastener. It is almost like they needed to grind some material off the end of the bit. Now onto the Gedore driver, which you can see fits the fastener many times better than the Felo did. This was actually one of the better performing fitting drives, but I didn't get the impression that the end of the bit was actually bottoming out in the fastener. Now onto the Wiha, which you can see was also a very fine fit. It felt like the Wiha was actually gripping the best out of all of them. The Wera was also a nice fit, and I would say it was a close second to the Wiha. The fits were almost identical, and I had to try each bit many times before I decided that I liked the feel of the Wiha better. So to score this, it was pretty clear who the loser of this test was, and that was the Felo. In third place, the Gedore had a nice fit, but lost some points due to the lack of full engagement of the screw. I went back and forth between deciding first place and second place between the Wiha and Wera, but I ended up picking the Wiha because it felt like it was gripping a little bit better than the Wera. This could also be because of the lower center of gravity due to a shorter arm. Now that we assigned a score to each of the categories, when we add up the weighted sums, the driver with the lowest score wins. A perfect score would be a 1, while the worst score would be a 4. In fourth place with a score of 3.05 is the Felo driver. The biggest issue with the Felo was the bit fit, arm length, and joint design. The Felo did score high on ergonomics surface finish and was the cheapest of the candidates. Third place goes to the Gedore with a score of 3.0, just beating out the Felo. The biggest issues with the Gedore were the high cost, surface blemishes, and poor ergonomics due to being the shortest of the candidates. Things that the Gedore has going for it is the shorter arm length, and that this might be a good tool for you if you absolutely need a short offset driver. The runner-up was the Wera driver with a score of 2.5. The only issue with the Wera that would prevent it from earning first are the long arm length, and which limits its usefulness. I really like the handle, joint design, and surface finish of the Wera unit. And finally, the winner of the offset screwdriver showdown is the Wiha with a score of 1.45. Wiha unit wins because it fits the screws the best in my opinion, and has the shortest arm length out of all the candidates. The unit was very well designed. I could find no manufacturing issues at all. Now there is one thing I should probably make clear, in that each of these drivers will get the job done. You may arrive at totally different conclusions, so feel free to try the other drivers and not just the ones that I scored high. Let me know if you like these Showdown videos and want to see more in the future. These are definitely the most time-consuming type of video to produce, but I will continue to do them if there is interest. If you have any ideas for future Showdown videos, then leave a comment below. Well, that wraps up this video for the Offset Screwdriver Showdown. Check out the link in the description to the full review. And if you like this video, subscribe for more reviews of German brand tools.